Praises and the glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakah, Quadash, and double honors to the apostles of the great millstone, and as well as giving also the salutations thereof towards the Yakim that's pushing this truth throughout the four corners of the earth, and Shalom to the brothers out there that's basically supporting what we say, what we do, including the sisters. Once again, it's the brother Laban, and I just want to jump right into what I caught on a couple of things. First, this video of Putin saying that he's not bluffing. And before I go further into the video, I just want to play the video so that you can see what's being said here. And then, as usual, move forward.
Также располагает различными средствами поражения, а по отдельным компонентам и более современными, чем у стран НАТО. И при угрозе территориальной целостности нашей страны для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не бред. Граждане России могут быть уверены, территориальная целостность нашей Родины, наша независимость и свобода будут обеспечены. Подчеркну это еще раз. Всеми имеющимися у нас средствами. А те, кто пытаются шантажировать нас ядерным оружием, должны знать, что роза ветров может развернуться и в их сторону.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it right there. That's all he had to say. And he ain't playing. All right. And just like Yahweh Shai told the disciples that the end is not yet, but is damn near very close. And I mean, you can see everything coming in the way we expect it, because you know, as well as we know and we understand, you know, we're hearing a lot of talks, especially concerning the World Economic Forum, how they're speaking about how they want to connect everybody with the this technology, which is the beast technology, which is what we say that it is, the MOTB prophecy. And at the same time, we're hearing about these nations expressing themselves as to what's going on, especially Russia, because Russia feels threatened because of what's going on with NATO, not necessarily Ukraine, but it's really NATO and America throwing their weight around because they believe, because they got the backing of NATO. But according to Bible prophecy, as I'm going to go into later on, NATO is going to pretty much betray America, and America's going to be left with themselves, and America's going to be destroyed. All right, so this is what's basically being staged to happen, man. This is what's being prepared to happen on the face of the earth right now. But I just want to read the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, because in the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, this basically specifies what's really going on right now. Just like back prior, before the times that we're living in today, when you read the scriptures, you had the time of Megiddo, which involves the nations warring, and now we're going to experience that again, and this Megiddo is going to end this whole entire system, or this society as a whole as we know it. All right, so let's begin by reading verse 1 of Joel, the 3rd chapter. So this reads, "The nations will be judged," which is the head title. "For behold, in those days and in that time will I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem." In other words, the Lord is going to take away from us the captivity. All right. In other words, bring back from off us the captivity. "I will also gather all nations, and I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my land." Now, the valley of Jehoshaphat literally is a part which is within Jerusalem. Okay, but in this case, looking at the word, which is Yahweh Shaphat, which means the Heavenly Father's judgment. Yahweh Shaphat, which means the Most High's judgment. Yahweh is the Most High, and Shaphat is judgment. So the Lord is going to bring unto these nations major judgment, and I will plead with them, in other words, punish them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my land. And they have cast lots for my people, and had given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. And that actually happened during the slave trade. You had nations that were trading us for diluted wine. So this actually happened. And sold the girl for wine that they might drink. And yea, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon? Because the Philistines, which were Hamites, dwelled in these areas, and all of the coast of Palestine. Hence is why it's called Palestine in relation to the people of the Philistines. Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head. Because you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. And that's exactly what the Greeks did. In other words, the Edomites. During the time of the Greeks, that's what they did. They destroyed the temple, turned it into a place of exercise, and carried all of the resources that we had, the gold and the silver, into their vaults. And that's exactly what they did on this side of the spectrum as well. They got all of the silver and the gold and the gemstones, which came from us. All right. Verse 6, and the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. Now, when you look into the interlinear, the word Grecian is going to lead to the word Japhet. And that never happened. We were never sold to the Japhites. We were never sold to the people of the Fiji Islands, and they used us as slaves. That never happened. So you got to put this into context to make sense of it. This is referencing the Edomites, which were calling themselves Grecians because they became the Greeks after they conquered the Japhites. Okay. That you might remove them far from their border. And we was removed far from our border. We was moved far away from the land of Israel. We were taken out of that land, and we were moved further away from that border, as it is written, to not remove the old landmark. And that's what Esau did, as well as the other nations helped with that furthermore. But obviously this was the agenda of Esau, to be exact. Verse 7, behold, I will raise them out of the place whither you have sold them, and I will return your recompense upon your whole head. So what is the ultimate recompense? Is that America is going to be destroyed and the rest of these other nations, because they had a major part to play in the dispersion of Israel. They had a part to play. Each and every nation had a part to play in the dispersion of our people and the destruction of our people. So therefore, the reason for this Third World War is simply because of what the nations have done unto Jerusalem, the Lord's people. They have touched the apple of the Lord's eye. And this is what's going to happen. They're going to reap what they sow, and they're going to wind up shooting missiles at one another. Hence is why you had two Edomites, two Amalekites, which I always like to mention from time to time. Hence is why this nuclear war is going to happen in the first place, because it all began with these two Amalekites, Albert Einstein and J. Robert Oppenheimer, which they both came up with destructive instruments, which the Heavenly Father put the Spirit on them to create these instruments. Because the Lord is going to use those instruments, as it is written, these are going to be his wastes to destroy. All right. And remember, Esau was blessed with the sword. So he's going to use the sword, and that sword is going to turn to his curse. The blessing which was given to him is going to be to his curse. Verse 6, and the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. And behold, I will raise them out of the place where ye have sold them, and I will return your payback upon your own head. So we're going to be raised out of the land which is where we were sold, which goes into the book of Jeremiah 16. Which expounds on the deliverance that Israel is going to be delivered in a more of a miraculous, dramatic fashion. So much so that our ancient salvation, which was in Egypt at the time, during the time we was under the Mizraimites, will no longer be spoken about, but rather the salvation which happened in these times, because these times we've all been scattered abroad, and now we're dispersed, and we're going to be brought back through Yahushua this time. And when Yahushua comes back, once again, this is going to be the third time him coming, because the first salvation that happened in Egypt, Yahushua was in the midst of that. Okay, So now Yahweh Shai is going to deliver us again, the second time, and this time it's going to be more miraculous, because all of the nations, and through their eyes, they're going to see the salvation of Israel, because Israel is going to be delivered throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, so the Lord, as it is written in various scriptures, that the Lord will do a wonder among the nations and show the nations that there is no other power besides the power of Israel. Okay, which is somewhere in the book of Psalms. Someone might even pull that out later. I might even do a lesson on that. But anyway, let's read verse 8. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hands of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them into the Sabeans to a people far off, for the Lord have spoken it. So Joel envisioned and saw, because the Lord blessed him to see this, that we would have these nations into slavery, and that we would have taskmasters, which would be those Hamites, which the Sabeans are one of the sons of Ham, I believe, if I'm correct. Let me go look up the word Sabeans and see where that brings me. See how long this takes. So I believe the word is Shabayam, if I'm correct on that. Right, the people of the nation of Sheba, a Shebite. Let me see something real quick. Let's look at this. The son of Joktan, the descendants of Seth, the son of Ra'amah, grandson of Cush, and the descendants of Ham. So I'm correct. It's the son of Ra'amah, grandson of Cush, descendants of Ham. So again, the Sabeans are the Hamites to a people. I just wanted to make sure, which the word is Goyim, which is in relation to the natural Gentiles, are far off, for the Lord have spoken it. So it has already been spoken that the nations will be sold, or should I say, we would have taskmasters among the Hamites, among these nations that we enslave, as it is written that the Lord will sell these nations unto the people of Judah, which is one of the tribes, or one of the tribe of Israel, and as well as we can include the kingdom of Judah, because all of us are going to enslave these nations. But before all of that happens, these nations are going to destroy themselves to confusion, and then that's going to happen. So the remaining of the nations that didn't die in this nuclear holocaust, they're going to be left for slavery. Okay, and most likely the nobles of the nations, they're going to be us. They're going to be pretty much our slaves, while the average among the nations have already been destroyed. The average among the nations. Joel 3:9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war and wake up the mighty men, and let all of the men draw near, and let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, and let the weak say that I am strong. So let's look up this word, wake up the mighty men, right? So the word wake up is awar. Awar, which means to rouse oneself awake, awaken in sight, to rouse oneself up, to be roused, to stir up, rouse in sight, to be excited, to be triumphant. So when Putin made a statement here on this video, he said he's not bluffing. Excuse me. He said he wasn't bluffing, and the proof that he's not bluffing, because look what's going on in Russia. What he's doing is he's to impose, as the article reads, Vladimir Putin to impose martial law and mobilize all military aides to fight. Okay, so this reads, Vladimir Putin is rushing through new laws which are likely to pave the way for mobilization in Russia. On Tuesday, Russia's parliament approved a bill to toughen punishments for crimes such as desertion, damage of military property, and non-compliance if they are committed during military mobilization or combat situations. The bill passed in its second and third readings on Tuesday by the Duma comes as Russia seems posed to implement mobilization, which would significantly escalate the conflict in Ukraine. The Russian parliament gave initial approval for introducing the concepts of mobilization and wartime into the country's criminal code. This follows intense pressure on Putin from hardliners to declare war. Instead of a special military operation, as they have been calling it, and mobilize men of military age to join army. So they're getting all of their men ready and prepared to fight. All right. When a country imposes martial law, it's in a state of an emergency. But he's posing martial law to get all of the men ready and prepared to fight. And as these kind of wars usually start, it starts from the ground, and then the next thing you know, it goes nuclear. All right, especially with these Edomites, they start from the ground on up. So that's where it's gonna end up first. They're gonna fight, and we already know that them Russians, man, they're always on the ready. Like the way that they train to be at war. They don't train for no other reason. Like these guys here, the way that these people train, if you see how they train and operate, yo, these dudes ain't playing. These crackers don't play around. Okay? So these dudes is on the ready because of what's going on with Ukraine. And it's not really that they're threatened by Ukraine is doing, because Ukraine is just a small fry to them. So they're no threat at all. And I mean, Russia already gave them a little smack. You know, they back to submission again. No one to worry about. But what Russia's worrying about is the allies, and as well as what America's doing. What I want to do is I want to briefly talk about what Joe Biden said at the UN meeting. And he was just basically calling out Russia and how Russia's doing this and that and the third. And they have no right to do it in my words as of what I'm saying. Because I don't really remember to be exact what he was saying, but he didn't really say anything that was like a threat of anything of that nature, you know. But going back to Putin is not playing no games, man. You know, this is getting serious now. And I mean, let's not forget, this is a banker's war. And this whole entire earth right now is just pretty much a stage, and with all characters in it. Basically, everybody's playing their part. These elitists, they're playing their part. These politicians, they're playing their part. But pretty much, man, eventually it's gonna get to the point where they're gonna start fighting for real. You know what I'm saying? I know, and just to bring it back to what Yahushua said, Yahushua told the disciples and told us in general that hold on, let me see something real quick. Let me see if I could pull it out. Let me see if I can just read that. Matthew 24. And this is Yahushua telling the disciples of the things that was going to happen before he makes his second return. So I just want to skip and read verse 6, which is the point. So it reads, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, and seeing that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places, and all these are the beginnings of sorrows." All right, so the point is but the end is not yet. Why? Because other things must therefore come to pass. We know that a famine is on the verge of taking place, and we know as well as through the famine, as I see, the MOTB prophecy is going to come in. Jacob's trouble is going to come in the middle of all of that. So all of that has to happen, and then you're going to have this war. But everything's going to come together in one given moment. Okay? So that's why the end is not yet. But we're approaching the end, and it's very close. It's getting really close. So yeah, so that's it on that. Now I want to read about this over here, and I wish I would have read about this earlier, because I did speak about the land of Jehoshaphat, which is an area within Jerusalem. Okay, on how, and what I'll do is I'll read it again. Let me go back to Joel 3. We're going to go back to Joel 3, and we're going to read actually, I haven't even went there yet, so I'm all right. I tell you what, since I'm back in the scriptures, let me continue to read some more on this so I can finish this off. So this reads, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, and let the weak say I am strong. And this goes into how once upon a time, China and Russia, they were economically weaker than the Western countries. During the time, if I'm correct, during the time of the Second World War. That's when they were economically inferior, and now they're superior now. These countries were more agricultural, if anything. So that's what they relied on economically wise. So now this goes as far as to read verse 11. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about thither, and cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. And this is what Russia's doing. You read the book of Ezekiel 38, that tells you that basically all of the allies of Russia have already came together, and Russia's guarding all of them. And as he's been doing since 2014, as I can remember, sending them nukes. I believe it was S-300s, S-400s all around the way among their allies. And they still doing it to this very moment in time, getting ready and prepared for this national war, which is going to destroy this system, this society as a whole, as you know it. Verse 12, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. This is the point. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. And as I've said, Jehoshaphat is within Israel, and Iran is ready to fight concerning Raisi's speech, which these nations were speaking at the UN, which I caught today. So this reads, Raisi's speech tells the world one thing, and this is from the Jerusalem Post. Iran is ready to fight. In 2021, Iranian President Ibrahim, which really they're trying to say Abraham, showing you that the Arabs, they speak broken Hebrew, which really the Iranians, they're not really Arabs, they're actually Elamites. But they speak Arabic due to the Islamic way of life that they uphold, which is an Arabic religion, which Arabic is basically broken down Hebrew. Anyway, slapped the U.S. in the face repeatedly in his UN speech as Washington was begging to return to negotiation. Why is it different now? The difference this time is that the IAEA Board of Governors had already condemned the Islamic Republic for its nuclear violation in June, and Raisi couldn't care less. So in 2021, the Biden administration was upset that Raisi had frozen the nuclear negotiation from from June 2021 to September 2021, with the freeze continuing deep into 2021. By Wednesday, the US and even the EU had lost their patience with Tehran and offered the best and most flexible deal that they were willing to offer. Yet in the IAEA board's September meeting, nothing happened, and there was no additional condemnation, no referral to the UN Security Council, no even a deadline for Iran to cut a deal or face a United Nations Security Council, if I'm correct with that referral. Rather, the U.S. and the West signaled that they will do nothing to pressure the Ayatollahs further to cut the deal, or at least freeze their forward nuclear progression until sometimes after the U.S. midterms election in November. And what I take from that is basically they don't want Iran to enrich their uranium, so to speak. They don't want them to increase in their nuclear energy, because then that's going to definitely transfer the power to them, and the Israelis have to maintain the power within the Middle East. And that's why they've been making a big deal about this nuclear deal thing, because they don't want them to enrich in their uranium and the plutonium, if I'm correct on what I'm saying. Let me see something real quick. Yeah, uranium is the fuel most widely used by nuclear plants for nuclear fission. Considered a non-renewable energy source. So it's nuclear energy, basically. Because the more they build on their nuclear energy, the more they will be the power of the Middle East, which Israel wants to continue to be the power of the Middle East. So this is why these countries, which is pretty much supporting Israel, is making sure that they do this deal to limit their uranium and plutonium. So that's it on that. So let's continue to read. So rather, the U.S. and the West signals that they will do nothing to pressure the Ayatollahs further to cut the deal, or at least freeze their forward nuclear progress until sometimes after the U.S. midterms election in November. Under these circumstances, Raisi seemed to ready himself and his nation for a potential post-November fight before the UN Security Council. For most of his speech, he skewed the U.S. for its unilateralism and its use of nuclear weapons at the end of World War II. Exactly, because how can you tell us to fall back on our nuclear energy, but then you was acting on unilateralism 70 plus years ago? So we're not going to listen to you. We're going to continue to do what we got to do. So this reads, Raisi said that soon there will be a change of world order, a unilateral world, a world of hegemony, a world in which financial power controls behavior with the use of international organizations as a tool of oppression on defenseless nations. A new order is shaping up to take its place, and the not so veiled appeal was to many of the world's nations on the fence between a world led by the US and the EU versus those considering a new order led by countries like China, Russia, and Iran. So this is what he believes. He believes, as they all believe, they believe that they're going to be the next in the power seat, rather it be in a hegemony of the West. There's going to be a hegemony of the East, and in this world, it's going to be basically financial rule. And that's why for the past amount of years they've been disassociating themselves from the dollar, because they figure, okay, if they do that, then they can weaken the dollar. And as well as they're going about changing their style of currency, which is what everybody's doing nowadays, looking into the CBDCs, which stands for central bank digital currencies. And the world is going to be governed based on that. Right. But the point of the matter is that this is what they believe. They believe that China and Russia is going to be the next in line into the power seat. But not what they don't realize is that the Lord is setting these nations up to blow themselves to smithereens. And the next thing you know, the Lord is going to set up the saints. Remember, this is all because of the controversy of Zion, because of what the nations did. That's why this war is on the verge of happening in the first place. As it reads in verse, let me read this again. And I will also gather all nations, and I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. So let's look up this word plead, so I can convey the point. So the word is shapat, which is to judge, to govern, vindicate, punish, to act as law giver or judge or governor of the Most High, to rule, govern, judge, to decide controversy, to execute judgment. So that's all it really means. It just means to judge or to punish. So it doesn't mean that the Lord is going to back the nations. No, the Lord is going to judge the nations because of what they did. And the way of judgment for these nations is going to be that they're going to get involved in a war that they're all going to lose, and many will die. Billions will die because of this. As it is written, many will perish, those that which were born in vain, and many will perish than those that will be delivered. I'm roughly paraphrasing as it is written in 2nd Ezra 8, or I believe it's chapter 9. So this is what this is. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue, and we're going to finish it off with Revelations, because I want to talk about NATO now. So this is Revelations 17. And we're going to read verse, let's get to the point. Verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So what this is basically interpreting, which is the correct interpretation, is that all of these nations which makes up NATO, which is in line with America, EU is in line with America, which represents NATO, which goes into the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was established in 1949 to be exact. Guess what? That's going to break apart, because somewhere around this war, the EU is going to separate themselves from America, and America is going to be destroyed, and they're going to shoot missiles. So they're going to be betrayed by their own allies. And the original 10 would have to be, let me see if I can, the original 10 of the horns is Belgium, Denmark, France, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Greece, Spain, England, and Germany. And that's the EU, which was established at 1958. But going back to NATO now, NATO is made up of what? 30 other nations, because you had 20 additional nations which joined with the nations of the original 10 within Europe. And again, that's going to break apart. The alliance of the West is going to break apart, because as I just read to you, they're going to shoot missiles at America. America's allies are going to turn on America and shoot missiles at her. This is why this reads, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Verse 17, for the Most High put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, unto the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. So ultimately, this is going to happen because of the will of the Heavenly Father. So logically, naturally, it wouldn't make sense for them to betray one another, because they're going to lose. But somehow, some way, this will be done, because ultimately, the Heavenly Father is involved in this. As it is written, the Lord, he makes good and he creates evil. So for the sake of the Edomites, evil will be, and therefore their downfall. Okay? And then the saints are going to rise up and rule the next world, which is in relation to the book of Daniel, as I'm thinking about, because Daniel broke down what the statue represented. And the 10 horns is the 10 toes. So what came after the 10 toes? What did Daniel mention afterwards? He mentioned the Ancient of Days that did sit. Why did he mention the Ancient of Days that did sit? Because the Ancient of Days is going to set up the kingdom. As it is written in the New Testament, that is in the Lord's will, and he is zealous to set up the kingdom. So it's going to be in his will to set up the kingdom for the saints. And as you read all the way down in the book of Daniel 7, it tells you that the saints shall possess a kingdom forever and ever. And in the book of Daniel chapter 2, and I believe is in verse 48 or 49 somewhere, where that tells you that this kingdom will not be given to another nation. All right. And this is after the nation among the 10 toes. And this is after the 10 toes, which the 10 toes is insinuating what we're in right now, the revival version of the ancient Roman Empire. All right. So after this empire is done and destroyed, then that kingdom is going to be set up. So the transition is happening right now. We're in the moment of the transitioning right now. And just to back up Revelation 17 and verse 16 to 17, let's get the book of Obadiah. The book of Obadiah 1. And so this reads, verse 7. Here we have it. All the men of thy confederacy, in other words, those that have made a covenant with thee, have brought thee even to the border. And the men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. And they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee, and there is none understanding in them. So in other words, what's going to happen is America is going to be brought forward towards this war. And then the allies of America are going to back off and betray them and be in league with Russia and shoot missiles at America. This is what we see happening, man. This is what we've been talking about for a long time, for years. And it's very clear. So this lines up with Revelations, the 17th chapter, Obadiah 1 and 7. All right, let me read this again. And all of the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. And the men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. And they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee, and there is none understanding in them. And shall I not in that day, save the Lord, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and the understanding out of the mount of Esau? And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Exactly. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. You see? So they're going to be cut off. But after the 1,000 years of slavery, this is what's going to happen in verse 18. You see? So they're going to be cut off forever. In other words, they're not going to come back into power anymore. Malachi 4:1. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all of the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, save the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. And when you destroy any plant or tree from the root, it cannot come back, never again. So I'm relating this precept back to Obadiah. Verse 10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. So in this case, they're going to be cut off by slaughter, and they'll never come back into power because they're going to be cut off forever, pursuant to verse 10. Okay, and then officially, after they serve 1,000 years of slavery, as a nation, they're going to be literally cut off forever. All right. So that's pretty much the deal, man. I don't know what else to really speak about. I think I've said what I had to say on this. But as I'm going to entitle the video, the world is at boiling point. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. Shalom.